Hello there and welcome back. So let's talk about the first story of troubled relationships. And this is the most common story. It's the easiest to fix, it's the least problematic. And to be honest, pretty much every couple, no matter how good they are, is going to run into this story at some point in their relationship. And this is the situation where everything basically looks good on paper. That the house is fine, we got jobs, the kids are good, food on the table, bills paid, everything is basically good on paper. But that sort of spark of attraction has started to diminish. That emotional connection has started to just sort of be taken for granted and faded a bit. And certainly, the sex life and intensity can be dropping down some. Now, none of this is completely gone. Both partners are still open to all of this, but that general sort of drive and motivation to seek each other out and connect and all this sort of stuff has started to fade away a bit. And this happens to every couple pretty much because, well, life gets busy. If you're getting together when you're relatively young, you have relatively few responsibilities. You're in the prime of your life. I mean, just imagine for yourself, a couple in their early 20s. Careers are only just sort of starting off. They're in the peak of physical health, and they don't have any kids. They don't have any other outside major responsibilities. But 20 years later, when they're in their early 40s, well, there's houses and mortgages and kids and longer careers and parents getting sick and all kinds of things that are starting to take up their time, energy, and attention. And of course, by the time you're in your early 40s, you're not as hot, as physically great as you were in your early 20s. So, at the beginning, when the interest was the highest, they also had the most available personal energy in their life. And that's both made them more attractive because they had higher energy. High personal energy is more attractive than low energy. And they also had all that energy to spend seeking each other out. So they didn't actually need to think about their relationship very much at all. The relationship was working just fine on a purely unconscious, unplanned, unstaged, moment to moment level. It just worked. But as you go into the future, life gets busy, the margin of error gets smaller and smaller with your available energy left. So you can also have the thing where your own personal energy drops a bit, so that is less attractive in and of itself, and you have less energy to pursue and seek out your partner. So the solution, I mean, this is why every couple gets to this point. You get to this point by being successful at your relationship as much as anything. If you've been together 20 years and you're starting to run into this sort of thing, this is because your relationship is basically fundamentally good, sound, and has been successful. You've just run out of road on the thinking about it unconsciously, and now you have to start a little more consciously. You have to really figure out what it is that attracts your partner. What is it that attracts you, and be more focused with creating personal energy and spending that the right way on each other to rebuild that spark of attraction, the emotional connection, and get the sex life going back together. And the really, really good thing about this problem, this story, is there's not necessarily any giant red flags. There's no abuse happening, there's no neglect happening, there's nothing really obviously bad happening. Like I say, it looks good on paper because it is good on paper. So there's no giant red flags. And if you can find the things that are going to reattract each other, rebuild that emotional connection, you get your fitness back together, and you raise your personal energy, as long as you had some sort of, good level of basic fundamental attraction to each other at the start of the relationship, it's almost impossible to not reawaken some of that once you pay a little more conscious attention to it. So this is the first story. It's relatively common, it's relatively mild, it's extremely fixable. And this is the type of story where all that sort of magazine advice on how to hang out and spend more time and all these sort of little things to increase attractiveness and attraction are really, really helpful for, because it is a relatively mild, easy, fixable problem. So that's the first story. Tomorrow we'll come back. We'll talk about the second story, and I will catch you then.